Hello and welcome to Pandora FMS. In today's video, we will show you how to configure alerting in Pandora FMS using Slack platform for notifications. For this, we will start from some fundamental requirements such as having previously created an account in Slack to create the channels and the app, having Python 3 installed on your Pandora FMS server, and optionally having access to Pandora FMS web API configured to incorporate graphics to your alerts. Now that you know what you need for the alerts to reach you through Slack, we're going to see the steps to follow to configure it correctly. We will start by creating an app in Slack, so open your browser and type in the URL api.slack.com. Once you're on the Slack home screen, you will see a section with two options. There, choose to create a custom app. You can also scroll up to the right to the option Your Applications. Click on Creating a new app and then the first option. Then just fill in the data in the form that appears, giving it a name and indicating which workspace it will belong to. Once these two fields are completed, just click Create. The next step will be to define the configuration of the app. In order to use Pandora FMS CLI, configure it as an incoming webhook. Click in this section and activate the token on the upper right corner. We see that this action extends the initial box we saw, and below we find a button for adding a new webhook to the workspace. Click, and you will just have to choose the channel where you want the app to send the messages to and click Allow. If you scroll in the side menu on the left, you can go to the first section of Settings, the one that says Basic Information. There you will find some configuration options like changing the name of the app, including a description, or adding an avatar or icon. I'm not going to change anything for now. The following step is to go within the same menu to the section OAuth and Permissions. Here we will do a couple of things. On the one hand, we will copy the OAuth access token for bot. This will be the token that you will need for the execution of the connector. And on the other hand, you will need to give explicit permissions in some cases to the webhook to be able to write. To do that, scroll in the same section until you reach the block Scopes and click on Adding a scope of OAuth. Look for the options Chat:(write) and Files:(write) and add them. When doing this action, it will request you to install the application, which will be like updating it. Indicate the channel again and it will already have the new permissions added. In the case of writing on chat, we will be allowing for information to be sent from Pandora to Slack, which will be necessary if you want to receive the data of the alert. However, file writing is optional, and for example, it will be useful if you want to include graphs in the alert. After following these steps, you will have the application installed and working. What we will do now is add the app to a channel, or to several if you like so. This operation is very simple, and to do it, just go to the main view of your Slack chat, select the channel, and expand its options by clicking on the information icon that you have at the top right. Click More and then Add Applications. This action will open a list where you can select the application that you created. Now just click on Add and you will have your application added to the channel. With this, Slack is configured, so now we will focus on Pandora FMS server. First of all, to use Pandora FMS Slack CLI, you must have Python 3 and Py3 installed for their dependencies. Just execute the command that you see on screen. Once the installation is finished, go to Pandora FMS module library and download the manual available in Spanish and English and the package with the files compressed in a zip. Upload the files within the zip to your server. In my case, to the path where the server plugins are stored by default in Pandora FMS, /usr/share/pandora_server/util/plugin/. Next, just execute the command seen on screen that will help you download and install the necessary dependencies. Now that you have the dependencies installed, run with Python 3 the file Pandora-Slack CLI.py followed by -h to see its help. There you can see that the plugin requires 3 mandatory parameters: the token you obtain when creating the app, the name or ID of the Slack channel, and the data that are sent in key value format separated by commas. We're going to carry out a test with the following execution. If it is correctly sent, a message like the one we see in the terminal will appear. Also, you will be able to verify in the Slack chat that you got the information. As you can see in the help, apart from the serialized data, the token, and the channel, there are several optional parameters. Some of them very simple and self-explanatory, such as the message title, an emoji, the alert description, or the footer. Others may be a little less intuitive, such as the configuration of the graph. So we will make a small example of an execution with the most relevant parameters. When unzipping the package, there's a file called test-exec.txt where you will have an example run using all the parameters. The result of this execution will be slightly different. It will contain more information indicating that you have the API configured and that the graph has been generated successfully. But for this to work correctly, first edit the file, so we're going to make some changes to the template it comes with. First of all, change the content of the line that starts with the parameter -t and copy the token you generated from Slack previously. Then in the one that starts with --API_conf, we're going to replace the IP by that of our Pandora FMS server. And we will also change the values of user, pass, and API_pass if they are different. The first two are the ones with which we log into the console, and the third can be verified from the section Setup, General Setup. There you see the field API password, and above it a box with a list of IPs that have access. In my case, I wrote an asterisk so that it accepts from any source IP. You won't either need to make any more changes, since this is just a test to verify that it runs correctly and that it is displayed on your Slack channel. If everything's correct, when executing you will see that the following message is shown in the terminal and that the alert is displayed correctly in Slack, with its graph and other data and icons. Therefore, now that you have Slack configured and you have successfully carried out the tests from the terminal, it is time to proceed with the settings in Pandora FMS console. The first thing to keep in mind is that the script must be in an accessible path on the machine where you have Pandora FMS server deployed. In our case, and as we saw before, we will place it in /usr/share/pandora_server/util/plugin/. But any location can be used as long as Pandora FMS server has access to that path. Next, we're going to scroll through the menu to the section Alerts Commands. Here we're going to create a new command for which our user must be an administrator, or at least have management permissions on the alerts. In the form that appears, first name the command, then add the execution of the script and the parameters to be used using Pandora FMS macros, the group the command will belong to, and a description to clarify what it will be for or what this command refers to. In the file test-exec.txt, there is already a definition of the command with macros as an example, so you may use that one. If you look at the command, we have replaced the values that we filled out earlier in the execution from the terminal by a series of variables that refer to the fields below. It will be here where we define some fixed elements and others using different macros as we find it more easy and useful. Fill in the fields you need with information useful for each one. In this case, I'm going to establish a series of data and macros so that when my alert arrives, it shows me information about the agent, which group it belongs to, the module that triggered it, its value, and what time it was triggered. You can also define the token as hidden for connection to the Slack app, so as not to let all users see it, or the API configuration data. Once done, the command is configured. Click on Create and go to the section named Actions in the menu. In this case, the configuration of the icon will be fast since we've filled in all the parameters in the command, but we're going to start with the first sections that appear in the form. As before, add a name to save the action we're handling, the group that will have access to it, and choose the command to be used. In this case, the one we just created. We see that when we select it, the fields below are filled in with the information inserted in the command configuration. Here, define and modify the fields corresponding to the fields we established. I have left it as the default configuration in the command, so we can use it with what we have defined, but you can change it at the level of specific actions if you want to change the data sent for each action. You can also see that the text or fields can be changed both for the trigger and the recovery fields. Once you're done, click on Create and go to the next point. Now the only thing left is creating a template with the terms that we want to be met so that the associated action is executed. The formula to be followed will be the same. Scroll in the side menu and select, in this case, the option Templates, and follow the form that appears. Add a name and select a group and go to the next step. Here, define when you're going to want the alert to fire, indicating days and time in addition to other fields that will help you indicate how many alerts at most you want to receive in a period of time and how many intervals have to be in the wrong state for the alert to be triggered. Select the action that you configured a while ago and the term that must be met for the alert to be triggered. There's also a field checked by default, and its activation depends on whether the number indicated in the minimum number of alerts is higher than 0. By enabling this token, you reset the alert counter when the indicated condition is not repeated consecutively. For example, if the field minimum number of alerts has a value of 2, it means that the module has to go into the state assigned in condition type 3 times to trigger the alert. 2 cases are possible. If the reset token is checked, it will be necessary for the number of critics to be consecutive. Otherwise, the counter will be reset. If you don't check the reset token, the alert will be fired after an alternative or continuous sequence of critics. Once this is configured, go to the final step, where you just have to enable or disable the option to receive an alert in case of module recovery. Here you can also modify some of the fields that we have already configured both in the action and in the command. But in general, it is not usually necessary to perform any task here since we will do it at action level. Click on Create and this time go to the agent and set the alert in the module you want. In my case, I'm going to define it in the used memory module of the server's own agent. I choose the action and template I just created and click Add Alert. We're going to set a threshold in the module so that it becomes critical and the alert is triggered. And as soon as the agent interval goes by, you will receive the alert on your Slack channel, as we can see. If you have any questions about how to configure alerts or which macros can be used, in the description we leave you the links to our wiki so that you can take a look at them. And that was it for today's video. Don't forget it, if you like the video, smile, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Remember that if you're interested in trying Pandora FMS Enterprise, contact us to get a free 30-day trial. Thank you very much for your time and we hope to see you on social media and in future learning videos.